see the whole world shaking, and you feel your heart is breaking. Take my hand, no hesitating. When you're just so tired of trying, all alone you feel like hiding. Together we'll keep fighting. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't stop now. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna mountains to how we can climb it. Feel this, we're taking the moment. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Can you see the sun is shining like a new hope? Feel it rising, coming over the horizon. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't stop now. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna mountains to how we can climb it. Feel this, we're taking the moment. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't stop now. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna mountains to how we can climb it. Feel this, we're taking the moment. There's no stopping us. Hold on, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me. Don't you give up, don't you give up now.
Hello everyone, it's great to have you join us again. This is week 2 of goals, where we're talking about, you guessed it, setting and achieving goals, but not just any goals, God-sized goals. Now we set goals all the time, finish my homework by 7 p.m, score a goal at football, get my crush to notice me. But after you set a goal, have you ever felt stuck? And if you've ever gotten stuck trying to achieve a goal, don't worry, we've all been there. But what matters is how we get unstuck. Now I have a little game to show you that Imi and Grace did earlier this week, and I want you to guess who's gonna win. Will it be Grace or will it be Imi? But let's jump straight into their game. All right, so here we are, ready for our game. So Imi and Grace, they are going to be competing against one another, which is, it could end the friendship, we just don't know, do we? Hopefully it won't. But the idea, we're going to do 2 games. The first round, they've got to try and build the tallest Cheerio tower. So earlier today, I dropped off some Cheerios at Imi's. Luckily, Grace had some available. So I am going to get my phone and I'm going to time you both, and you'll do it at the same time. And you've got 60 seconds to build the tallest Cheerio tower. Now, on this particular go, this first go, you can only use the Cheerios. You can't use anything else. Does that make sense? Are we clear?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Are you ready?
Yeah.
No. Yes.
Move away.
Right, 3, 2, 1, go!
Oh my gosh, this is really hard.
I'm like
Okay.
shaking.
They're really uneven. This is not even funny. Okay. Okay. Oh no, it's gone really wonky.
Ah, no, this
Really
is like
thin on one
air.
side. Oh my gosh, it's gonna fall. It's falling. It's falling. It's falling.
Oh, my hands going like this.
You're 20 seconds in.
Hey, oh my days. Right.
We've got
Oh,
like.
this
Why
is
can't-
not.
Why can't they just be like the same size?
Okay. We have a tiny one, but it's leaning. So if I add something else, I feel like it's gonna fall.
Mine's like the
Oh,
leaning
right.
character. Except
Right.
15 seconds.
Oh my gosh. The trick is to like try and keep it as even as possible. Ah! No.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop!
Imogen, do you have a
Okay.
power?
I have
Okay.
four.
Distant.
So, 1, 2, you've got 4. Okay. How many have you got, Grace?
5.
5.
I beat you.
Nice. Well done, Grace. Okay, so we're going to do it one more time, and we want to vote again. Who do you think is going to win? But I am going to let you use whatever you want. You can use sellotape, a banana, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Please ignore the. It's a bit gross, but that's okay.
Be prepared
Or
to
you can even use like family members if you want them to like hold the Cheerio tower as tall as you want. But I'm going to give you the same amount of time, but you can use whatever you want. Are you clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, those on YouTube, vote away. Who do you think is going to win? Who's the most creative? They've both had a bit of time to think about this, so they've both made a plan. Imi,
Yeah.
are you confident?
Kind of.
That's not voice of confidence. Okay,
Yes,
Grace is as well. Right. Oh, I don't know what that is. Right, are you ready? 3,
Yeah.
2, 1, go.
Ah, right.
Got this.
I'm doing it.
Oh, that's a clever
I'm stuck
idea.
in wonky.
I can't do it. I was supposed to be faster than this.
I think it stresses me out. 'Cause
No, I
you've got
can't do it.
yeah.
They won't stick. Okay, I got it.
Explain what you're doing.
I have a mirror, and on the back of the mirror, I've put some double-sided tape, and I'm
Another-
sticking them.
Oh. That's rude.
Hit a tower if they're not touching the floor.
Yeah, they are touching the floor of the mirror.
Oh.
Mine's leaning again. I think I have a common theme.
Right, you've got 10 seconds left.
Left? No way was that 1 minute.
Yeah.
I couldn't. No. Stop it.
Oh,
My mum.
Three,
no, my mum's
2,
behind
1,
me.
stop! Oh my word.
Hold on, Imogen, how many do you have?
I don't know.
You've got loads.
I tried searching stuff up online, and all he came up with was the Cheerio challenge, where they stack Cheerios on top of babies' heads whilst they're sleeping.
That's just a bit
Yeah,
strange.
I know.
Weird. Okay, well,
You might have
Emily,
won
how
that
many
one.
have you got? Can you count up for us?
I have 16.
Grace has got how many?
16.
Nice.
39.
Whoa.
I'm sorry, Grace.
Oh.
Amy, that was brilliant. Well done, Grace. It was very creative ideas, though, both
I
of you.
know. I was very
great.
clever. The tape wasn't sticky enough.
Yeah,
So-
sorry about that. Well, it's been great. I wonder who guessed that Imi would win. She wasn't confident to start off with, but
Yeah.
it seems that Imi did win. Nice work, guys. Hey, we'll jump back into the message now, so we'll see you soon. Thank you so much, Grace and Imi, for getting involved and for taking part in that ridiculous game. Now, I want to ask you all a question. What's one of your plan-worthy goals? You know, while some of us may be more naturally talented than others in certain areas, we are all capable of accomplishing big things. Whether it's building a Cheerio tower, learning a new skill, or changing the world, God gives us all the ability to solve problems and make things happen. But to accomplish anything, we usually need a plan. So what's a goal that wouldn't be possible without a plan? It might be a spiritual goal, like spending time with God more regularly. It might be a mental goal, like learning something new, or a physical goal, like trying a new activity or getting faster or stronger. It might be a relational goal, like being a better friend or being kinder to your family. You know, these are all really good goals, but without a plan, they're just wishful thinking. Now, I want to introduce you to Ben. Ben has been coming to West Road Church for a long time, and he's currently at uni, and I asked him to share a time where he made a plan and he achieved a goal that was important to him. So why don't you check out what Ben said about his goal.
Hey, my name's Ben, and today I'm going to tell you about a goal I set myself. In September 2019, I had my Gold DOV expedition, and the aim was to paddle down the River Severn in a canoe for 4 days without dying. At the time, I didn't really see this as a goal, but looking back, this was certainly something I had to take step by step in order to complete successfully. So the thing that helped me to reach this goal the most was really detailed planning. Planning a whole 4-day expedition seemed like a mammoth task at first, but splitting it up and tackling each aspect separately helped me to get it all done and organised at the same time. Being the computer geek that I am, I opened Excel and made a spreadsheet. This was to contain information about every single aspect of the expedition, from the transport, meal plans, shopping list, campsites and routes. Everything there was to know about that expedition was in that spreadsheet. Now, a spreadsheet may not be your cup of tea, but for me, having everything written down in one place really helped me to grasp the situation with 2 hands and enabled me to keep track of what needed to be done next. I do wish that I had involved God in the planning. I remember having doubts about the people in my group since they weren't very proactive during the planning stages. If I brought these concerns to God in prayer, I know that He'd have given me comfort. Right now, 1.5 years later, me and the people I went on that DOV expedition with are now best mates. So during the expedition, as a group we were able to relax and enjoy ourselves without worrying about the nitty gritty such as what food we'd be having that night or how long the next day of travel would take. Yep, I didn't need a fancy spreadsheet with pretty colours and pretty fonts to be able to do that. However, I think the planning beforehand really meant I could achieve my goal and enjoy myself at the same time. This isn't to say that the expedition didn't have its tough moments. We all got tired, impatient and stressed at times. However, something I found really comforting during the expedition was being able to go into my small tent in my tiny sleeping bag and lift up my thoughts to God in prayer and place all of my worries and quibbles into His hands. Handing over the tough situations to God was one of the best things I did during that expedition. Apart from canoeing down those rapids, that was pretty sick. It gave me a real sense of peace that everything was under control, motivating me to carry on and finish what I had set out to do. Not that I had much choice. So yeah, I hope that sharing about how I achieved my goal has helped you to think about how you're going to achieve yours. I'll see you soon, and back over to Alice.
Thank you so much, Ben, for sharing that. So what does it matter to God and to us? First, I want to give a little bit of a recap from last week. We're looking at the moment at a book from the Old Testament of the Bible called Nehemiah, which was written by a guy named Nehemiah. About 140 years before this book was written, the Jewish people were conquered by an enemy army. They destroyed the city of Jerusalem, they burnt the temple where the Jewish people worshipped God, and they sent many of God's people into exile. But God promised that one day the Jewish people would return. And when the book of Nehemiah begins, some of God's people had begun returning to Jerusalem. They were looking for ways to rebuild what they had lost, but it was a long process. And Nehemiah was passionate about seeing Jerusalem restored, but he saw a problem. Although some of God's people were living in Jerusalem, the city walls that surrounded Jerusalem were still in shambles. Now, there's a practical problem about this. Without walls, God's people would be vulnerable to another attack. And the spiritual problem is leaving the walls in shambles dishonoured God. But rebuilding them would be a sign that their people were returning to God and choosing to be obedient again. And Nehemiah, inspired by his love for his people and his God, he set a God-sized goal. Rebuild the walls of Jerusalem so God's people would be protected and God would be honoured. Now, Nehemiah had a goal, but what about a plan? If you remember from last week, the first thing Nehemiah did was to spend time in prayer. He fasted and he prayed for months. Nehemiah chapter 1 verse 4 says this, "When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven." And then verse 11 goes on to say, "O Lord, please hear my prayer. Listen to the prayers of those of us who delight in honouring you. Please grant me success today by making the king favourable to me. Put it into his heart to be kind to me." There are three things that I notice in these verses. The first thing is Nehemiah didn't ask God for a step-by-step instructions. He knew God wanted him to lead the charge to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, and that was enough. He didn't say, "I'll just sit here and wait for you to tell me what to do next." He started planning. And by the time he reached the end of his prayer, Nehemiah was already working on his plan. He asked God to help him be successful in what he was about to attempt. I was a cupbearer to the king. This is helpful information for us to know, but I think it has another purpose. It shows us Nehemiah was making notes of the resources that God had already given him. As cupbearer to the king, he had access and influence with the most powerful person in the kingdom. To sum it up, you could say that Nehemiah planned while he prayed. We looked at Nehemiah chapter 2 verses 1 to 9 last week, and in these verses, we discover Nehemiah hadn't just been praying and casually planning. He had been preparing in great detail. The king asked Nehemiah why he looked so sad, and he had an answer prepared. The king asked what Nehemiah wanted. He had a request prepared. The king wanted to know how long Nehemiah's journey would take. He had a timeline prepared. And since the king seemed pretty open to his ideas, Nehemiah also had a list of requests prepared. And throughout this whole process, Nehemiah continued to talk to God in prayer, but he didn't wait for God to do all the work. He used the strategic minds that God gave him to plan and prepare while he waited for the right opportunity. Because Nehemiah had prepared in great detail for the opportunity, he hoped he would get to speak with the king. And when God arranged for the perfect moment, Nehemiah was fully prepared to take advantage of it. To sum it up, Nehemiah prepared while he planned. Nehemiah already had a plan in place, but now it was time to recruit others to help him make it happen. But first, he'd need to figure out how to deal with the people who definitely didn't want to help. Nehemiah chapter 2 verses 10 to 20 is quite a long verse, but I want us to read it together. And it says this: "When Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official heard about this," that is Nehemiah wanting to rebuild the wall, "they were very much disturbed that someone had come to promote the welfare of the Israelites. I went to Jerusalem, and after staying there 3 days, I set out during the night with a few others. I had not told anyone what my God had put on my heart to do for Jerusalem. There were no mounts with me except the one I was riding on. By night, I went through the valley gate towards the Jackal Well and the Dung Gate, examining the walls of Jerusalem, which had been broken down, and its gates, which had been destroyed by fire. Then I moved on toward the fountain gates and the king's pool, but there was not enough room for my mount to get through, so I went up the valley by night, examining the wall. Finally, I turned back and re-entered through the valley gate. The officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, because as yet I had said nothing to the Jews or the priests or the nobles or officials or any others who would be doing the work. And then I said to them, "You see the trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace." I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. They replied, "Let us start rebuilding." And so they began this good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard about it, they mocked and ridiculed us. "What is this you're doing?" they asked. "Are you rebelling against the king?" I answered them by saying, "The God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding. But as for you, you have no share in Jerusalem or any claim or historic right to it." Nehemiah gained a couple of enemies during this process, and when you're working on a God-sized goal, that usually happens. But once again, Nehemiah was ready. He wasn't naive. He expected people to oppose him. He knew to hold his tongue and keep his plans secret from the people who opposed him, and he was wise about who he trusted. He figured out a way to bypass the people who opposed him so he could recruit people who shared his vision for this God-sized goal. He surrounded himself with the right people. To sum it up, Nehemiah planned for opposition. Nehemiah was made for this. God gave Nehemiah a huge task to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. But God also gave Nehemiah everything he needed to make it happen. Nehemiah had access to God through prayer. He had God-given talents, abilities, and passions. He had the resources, opportunities, and connections God had given him. And he had other people. And although Nehemiah's God-sized goal probably scared and overwhelmed him sometimes, Nehemiah didn't give up or wait around for someone else to handle it. Instead, Nehemiah made a plan. And although Nehemiah's goal was extraordinary, he understood the tools that he would need to accomplish that goal were ordinary and already available to him. Nehemiah took the vision God had given him, the skills God had given him, and the resources God had given him, and he got to work. Nehemiah trusted that accomplishing this God-sized goal was exactly what he was made to do. And just like Nehemiah, you are designed for God-sized goals too. But now what? What does God want us to do about it? I want you to think about one big goal that you've achieved. Now, I know what some of yours might be. I know that for Sam, it might be that he built a computer from scratch. That's a pretty big goal, and he's done it. Or it might be for Katie, Molly, Ryan, and Lizzie and Dario. It might be for them completing their GCSEs to get to the next stage, which might be college or sixth form or an internship. Now, I don't know how you achieved that one goal, but here's what I do know. You were able to achieve it because God designed you to do big things. Now, you have a brain that can strategize, people who can help you, skills and resources you can use to see your goals accomplished. If you're not sure what you think about God right now, or you're not sure you have any God-sized goals, that's okay. Because what I'm going to share with you can still help you achieve whatever goals that you have. And if your goals right now are all about what you want to do or achieve for yourself, the story of Nehemiah can still teach you some important wisdom that will help you achieve your goals, no matter what they are. But I want to challenge you to think bigger than that. God designed you to do big things, even bigger than getting into college or making the football team. I want you to chase after your goals, but don't settle for the goals that only benefit you. Like we talked about last week, try asking God what else you might be designed to do. Because God has got big plans for you, God-sized plans. And I think, if you think you might have a God-sized goal growing in your heart, that's great. Maybe you wrote something down last week and you've been thinking about it ever since. Or Either way, there are 4 things that I see in Nehemiah's story that I think can help us turn our God-sized goals into plans of action. You know, God designed you just like he designed Nehemiah, with everything you need to accomplish the goals God puts on your heart. You've got you. We all have days where we feel insecure about who we are and what we can do, but God designed you with care, intention and purpose. And when God gives you a God-sized goal, ask, what do I bring to the table? How can I contribute? You know, you have got a mind that can think and plan and strategize. You've got a unique blend of skills, experiences and knowledge. You've got God-given interests and passions. The second thing is you've got others. Just like Nehemiah discovered, most God-sized goals can't be achieved alone. There's a lot that we can accomplish on our own, but if we want to make lasting change, we need other people. And when God gives you a God-sized goal, you can ask, who can I work with? Who have I got? And you've got friends and family. You've got trusted adults, teachers, coaches and mentors. You've got access to knowledge from experts through books, videos and the internet. You've got access to influential people who can help make things happen, either in person or online. The third thing is you've got things. Just like you need some extra supplies to stack your Cheerios, and Nehemiah needed transportation, wood, letters, the king's blessing, you're probably going to need some things to help you accomplish your God-sized goals. So when God gives you a God-sized goal, ask, what do I need? Where can I get it? Everyone's God-sized goal will need something different. Some of you might need money, an audience, an opportunity, a location, a platform. And the final thing, the most importantly, you've got a God. You've got God. Whether your goal is an everyday you-sized goal or a once-in-a-lifetime God-sized goal, God is with you. Just like God was with Nehemiah. And like Nehemiah, God probably isn't going to give you a step-by-step plan for achieving your God-sized goals, but that's okay. You don't need one because you already have everything you need. Like Nehemiah, you are designed for God-sized goals. You've got the bricks. Now what are you going to build? You've got the bricks. Now what will you build? I'd love to invite you now to head over onto Zoom. The code will be coming up in the comments now, so click on the link and we'll see you there for a time of small group discussion and another game. We can't wait to chat to you about what God-sized goals you might have.